Hello there, today we'll be inking Doctor Tenma from the manga Monster by Naoki Urasawa, and I'll be using a normal G-pen nib to start off with. So what you can see here is a very rough pencil sketch of the character, which I've drawn without a reference. I didn't really use a reference for it. Well, I didn't need to because I've read the manga quite a few times by now, and so it's really easy for me to recall the faces from memory, especially the face of the protagonist. And let me know if you would like to see some tutorials on how to draw manga characters without a reference, because it can be very challenging. And you can see me starting off with drawing the hair. I like to start off usually with drawing the hair because it's really easy to draw hair using the dip pens, because they offer quite a lot of line variation. As you can see, I don't have to press down as much on the paper to get really thick lines. And dip pens are also great for hatching or cross hatching, which is probably my favorite inking technique. And now I'm drawing in the lips and the mouth. Here you can see me using something peculiar, which is to flip the nib of the G-pen, which you're not supposed to do, because traditionally you're supposed to draw with the concave side facing the paper, but here I flip the nib every now and then to get really thin lines, because the G-pen tends to give you medium to thick lines, but it can't really give you really thin lines unless you do this, which is to flip the nib upside down, and then you can get really thin lines, which is ideal for drawing stubble and beard hair. Now you can see me applying more pressure to get thicker lines, and that's a solid black eyebrow right there. Typically in manga style drawings, you might have noticed that the artists don't tend to add too many details to the face, especially when it comes to drawing the nostrils, but there are a few examples, like Urasawa, for example, where you can see that he almost always tends to draw very realistic facial proportions. And here is another nib, which I'm going to use now, which I don't know the name of, but it has an extra reservoir attached to it, as you can see here, which I suppose is there in place to hold more ink, so that you can get more ink into the nib in just a single dip, so you don't have to essentially keep dipping the nib very often. And going in with really careful strokes here, drawing the shirt of the character. Sometimes while using dip pens you can get really wobbly lines if you go really slow, so you have to maintain your speed to get really straight lines, which is easy to do, much easier to do in fact if you're using technical pens like the Pigma Microns. And another difference between the dip pens and technical pens is, which I will get to in a second, is about the difference in hatching they produce. So you tend to get even some kind of line variation while you're hatching with the dip pen, whereas you will never get that using a mechanical pen. And you can see I'm drawing a thicker lines for the jacket, which kind of helps to bring out a different texture. And I'm going from top to bottom. Now, while using dip pens, it's always ideal if you're right-handed to draw from the top left corner down to the bottom right corner, because you don't want your hand to smudge over the ink later on. And that's why I tend to ink the left side of the illustration first, and also the top side as opposed to the right and bottom parts. It's not a matter of choice, it's just because I don't want the ink to get smudged over by my hand. And now, as you see me adding some hatching lines into the illustration, you can see that some of these lines are thicker than others, so you do get a little bit of line variation here. And by the way, if you have used a dip pen before, you would know that it produces a lot of scratching noises while you are hatching like this, and it feels really satisfying to draw with because of that. I didn't really capture any sounds on this video, so you can't really tell here, but maybe you can hear that in any of my other videos, or if you've tried it yourself. And even just watching such inking videos, I find it to be really oddly satisfying for some reason. Let me know in the comments, do you like to watch such inking videos too? Well, I sure do. And anyways, here you can see I'm adding mostly a lot of thick lines, which is no big deal, using this nib I've got, and I don't have to dip the pen into the ink that often either, because it holds a lot more ink than a normal G-nib. So I'm able to keep on drawing without having to dip the nib again and again. I'm almost done here with all of the lines, so I'll just be adding some final touches here. So now I'm done with all of the line art, and this is how the sketch looks after being completely inked. And now it's time to add some tones and shading to it using a 2B graphite pencil. I'm using the Faber-Castell graphite pencil here. Yeah, I'll just be going over it, so enjoy the time lapse. you can see some ink on my hands because a little disaster happened while I was filming this video. The bottle of ink fell and all of the ink just got all over the table, and thankfully my drawings were saved, so yeah. Alright, so that is the final illustration. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something from it, and I will see you later.